In the frostbitten town of Eldridge, nestled in a valley where military banners fluttered like proud sentinels, honor was currency, and a man's lineage was his legacy. The Miller family, anchored by Jason Miller, a regiment commander revered for his iron will, held sway in this rigid society where a woman's worth was tied to her husband and sons. Shirley Miller, Jason's wife, had once believed in the promise of their marriage, a union forged in quiet moments, under starlit skies where Jason's laughter felt like home. But that promise crumbled when she uncovered his betrayal, a wound so deep it scarred her soul across lifetimes. Shirley stood in the snow-dusted yard of their modest home, her breath clouding in the winter air, clutching the hand of her 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Her heart, once warm with love for Jason, now burned with the bitter truth he had faked his death to shed his life with her, and Lily donning the identity of his younger brother, Daniel Miller, who had perished in a disaster relief mission. The ruse was not for duty, but for desire. Jason's secret affair with Daniel's widow, Emily Summers, a woman whose delicate beauty masked a cunning heart. In Eldridge, where widows were shunned as burdens and male heirs were prized above all, Jason's deception was a calculated escape, leaving Shirley and Lily to face the town's scorn. In her past life, Shirley had seen through Jason's lie the moment he returned his familiar scar, a jagged line across the web of his hand, betraying him as he stood beside Emily playing the grieving brother. She had confronted him, her voice trembling with disbelief. Jason, why abandon us? But his eyes, once soft with promises, were cold as the river he shoved her into. I'm Daniel, he insisted, his voice sharp, and you're delusional, clinging to a dead man. The icy water swallowed her screams as he shielded Emily, who cowered behind him, calling Shirley a shameless widow. The town, quick to judge, believed Jason's lies, branding Shirley a madwoman who mistook her brother-in-law for her husband. Lily, her tiny frame shivering, had sobbed, Daddy, why don't you love me anymore? Her words pierced Shirley's heart, but Jason's cruelty cut deeper. He locked Lily in the livestock shed, claiming she was spouting nonsense under Shirley's influence. For 3 days they starved their pleas, drowned by the wind. Shirley's mother-in-law, Martha Miller, a woman whose obsession with grandsons bordered on fanaticism, cursed Shirley as a jinx who brought death to her son. You couldn't even give us a boy, she spat, kicking them out with nothing, not a blanket, not a crust of bread. The townsfolk, swayed by Jason's rumors, turned on Shirley, spitting at her feet, their whispers like knives, mad widow chasing her brother-in-law. Shirley held Lily close in the bitter winter, their bodies trembling under a threadbare shawl. They wandered lost and hopeless, until the cold claimed them, their final breaths mingling in the snow. Shirley's last thought was of Lily's trusting eyes, and her heart shattered with regret for failing her daughter. That memory, raw and unrelenting, haunted her as she stood in the yard, now the past life's pain etched into her bones. Lily tugged at Shirley's hand, her voice small but piercing. Mommy, why do I remember the cold? I was so scared. Shirley knelt, her eyes stinging with unshed tears, and pulled Lily into her arms. She whispered that it was a bad dream, sweetheart, though her heart raced with the truth. Somehow Lily carried fragments of that past life, a shared echo of their suffering. Shirley's resolve hardened. She would not let that tragedy repeat. In Eldridge, where a widow's fate was to beg or serve, Shirley knew she had to outsmart Jason to protect Lily and reclaim their dignity. Shirley's mind churned as the military bugles sounded in the distance, a reminder of the town's rigid hierarchy. She recalled Jason's scar, which she'd traced lovingly years ago now, a mark of his betrayal. She thought of Emily's smug glances and Martha's venomous words, all rooted in a culture that valued sons over daughters, husbands over wives. But a strange calm settled over her, as if a whisper from beyond, perhaps the same force that had returned her to this moment, urged her forward. Rewrite your fate, it had said in a fleeting vision, a glow that felt both divine and defiant. Shirley didn't understand it, but she clung to its promise. She would play Jason's game, but this time she would win. The dawn broke over Eldridge with a pale, hesitant light casting long shadows across the frost-covered streets. Shirley Miller stood in her small, drafty bedroom, her heart pounding as if it carried the weight of 2 lifetimes. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke from the town's hearths, a reminder of the community's rigid pulse where military honor and patriarchal traditions dictated every step. Only hours ago, in her mind's eye, she had died in the snow, clutching her daughter Lily, their breaths fading into the merciless winter. Yet here she was alive on the very day her husband, Jason Miller, began his charade as his deceased brother Daniel. The world felt familiar and alien, as if time had cracked open to offer her a second chance. Shirley's hands trembled as she smoothed the worn quilt on her bed, her mind replaying the haunting vision that had jolted her awake. In the fleeting moments between sleep and consciousness, a figure cloaked in shimmering light had appeared, its voice soft but commanding. "Rewrite your fate, Shirley. For you and your daughter break the chains of betrayal." The figure's glow had warmed her, filling her with a strange resolve, though its origins remained a mystery. Was it a spirit, a divine gift, or her desperate will conjuring hope? In Eldridge, where superstitions about ancestors and omens lingered alongside military discipline, such a vision felt sacred and perilous. Shirley didn't question it. She clung to its promise, her heart torn between rage at Jason's betrayal and a fierce love for Lily. She glanced at Lily, still asleep in her small cot, her tiny chest rising and falling under a patched blanket. Shirley's throat tightened. In her past life, Lily's cries, "Daddy, why don't you love me?" had echoed as Jason locked her in a shed, his cold denial shattering their family. Shirley knelt beside her daughter, brushing a lock of dark hair from her face. "I won't fail you again," she whispered, her voice cracking. The memory of their frozen deaths, Lily's small body curled against hers, fueled a fire in her chest. She would protect Lily no matter the cost, in a town where widows were expected to bow or beg their worth tied to the men they served. Lily stirred, her hazel eyes fluttering open wide with a confusion that pierced Shirley's heart. "Mommy, I had a bad dream," she murmured, her voice small. "We were so cold and Daddy wasn't Daddy. He was mean." Shirley's breath caught. Did Lily too carry echoes of that past life? The thought chilled her, but she forced a smile, stroking Lily's cheek. "It was just a dream, sweetheart. We're here now, and I'll keep you safe." Lily nodded, clutching her tattered doll, but her eyes held a flicker of understanding beyond her years. "Is Daddy gone?" she asked, her voice trembling. Shirley hesitated, the truth too heavy for a child. She promised, "We'll talk about it soon," her heart aching with the lie she'd quickly unravel. Outside, the military bugles sounded, signaling the start of Eldridge's day, where men like Jason held power and women like Shirley were expected to fade into the background. She knew Jason's plan to impersonate Daniel, who had died in a disaster relief mission to live with Emily Summers, his lover, without the stigma of abandoning his family. In her past life, Shirley had confronted him, her love for him blinding her to his cruelty. His shove into the icy river, his mother's curses, and the town's scorn had crushed her. This time she would be different. She would play along, hiding her knowledge of his scar, the jagged mark on his hand that betrayed his true identity. Her mind raced with strategy. Let Jason think he'd won, let him bury the evidence, and then dismantle his world piece by piece. Shirley stood, her resolve hardening like steel. The vision's words echoed, "Rewrite your fate." She didn't understand its source, but she felt its power in a town where whispers of ancestral spirits mingled with the clatter of military boots. She would use Jason's greed and Eldridge's rigid norms against him. She'd be underestimated as a widow, but that was her weapon. She thought of Emily's smug smiles and Martha's obsession with grandsons, their voices dripping with disdain in her past life. They'd pay for their cruelty, but not through reckless confrontation. Shirley would be cunning, and her love for Lily would be her guiding light. Lily climbed out of bed, hugging her doll tightly. "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" she asked, her small hand gripping Shirley's. The question broke Shirley's heart, but it also steeled her. "We will, Lily," she said, her voice firm. "We'll make a new life, just you and me." Lily's smile, fragile but brave, was a spark of hope. Shirley pulled her close, vowing to shield her from the town's judgment and Jason's lies. As the morning light crept through the window, Shirley felt the weight of her second chance. The path ahead was treacherous, but she was no longer the broken woman of her past life. She was reborn, and she would fight. The air in Eldridge's morning hall was heavy with the scent of incense and the weight of unspoken judgments. Shirley Miller stood before the black-draped altar, her face a mask of grief, though her heart churned with a storm of rage and resolve. The town, steeped in military tradition and patriarchal pride, gathered to mourn Jason Miller, the revered regiment commander whose death was a lie. In truth, the body being carried into the hall was Daniel Miller, Jason's younger brother, killed in a disaster relief mission. Jason, alive and standing among the mourners, hid behind his brother's identity to escape his marriage to Shirley and live with Emily Summers, his lover. Shirley, reborn with memories of her past life's betrayal, knew the scar on his hand, a jagged mark from a childhood accident, betrayed his true self. But today she would play the grieving widow, her every tear a weapon in a town where widows were pitied yet despised. Shirley adjusted her plain black dress, the coarse fabric a stark contrast to the gold jewelry she'd once worn, gifts from her late mother now coveted by Emily. The vision that had sparked her rebirth, a glowing figure whispering, "Rewrite your fate," lingered in her mind, urging her to be cunning. In her past life, she had confronted Jason at this very moment, her voice raw with hurt, only to be shoved into a freezing river and branded a madwoman. This time she would be different. She glanced at the body on the bier, pale and lifeless, its resemblance to Jason uncanny, but for the stillness of death. Her chest tightened with a pang of grief, not for the corpse, but for the husband she'd once loved, now lost to his deceit. "Daniel," she called softly, her voice trembling as she addressed Jason by his false name. "I didn't expect my husband to leave us so soon." The crowd murmured, their eyes flickering with sympathy and suspicion, as Eldridge's rigid norms judged a widow's every move. Standing beside Emily, Jason nodded awkwardly, his eyes red with feigned sorrow. "Sis-in-law. I'm heartbroken too," he said, his voice thick. Shirley caught the glint of the scar on his hand as he adjusted his coat, and her stomach twisted. She wanted to scream the truth to expose his betrayal, but the memory of Lily's frozen body in her arms held her back. She would destroy him, but not yet. Lily clung to Shirley's side, her small hands clutching her mother's skirt. Her hazel eyes, wide with confusion, darted between Jason and the body. "Mommy, why's Daddy pretending?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the mourner's whispers. Shirley's heart lurched. Lily's dreams of their past life's cold and betrayal haunted her, a child's intuition piercing the facade. Shirley knelt, pressing a finger to her lips. "Shh, sweetheart. We're playing a game to keep us safe. Just call him Uncle Daniel, okay?" Lily nodded, her face serious. Clutching her tattered doll tighter, she muttered, "I don't like this game," but her trust in Shirley was unwavering. Shirley rose, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief, her tears real but fueled by rage rather than loss. "We can't leave the body out too long," she roared, her voice breaking. "Let's cremate it quickly. Give Jason the dignity he deserves." Jason nodded eagerly, too eagerly, his haste to destroy the evidence of his brother's death betraying his guilt. He lifted the body, his movements brisk, and Shirley watched the scar flash under the dim light. In her past life, that scar had been her proof, but confronting him had only brought pain. Now she let him think he was safe, her silence a trap. The mourners, clad in somber grays and blacks, whispered among themselves, their voices tinged with Eldridge's obsession with honor. "Poor Shirley, left with a daughter and no son," one said. "A widow's life is cursed here," another muttered. In this town, a woman without a man was a shadow expected to serve or fade away. Shirley felt their gazes like weights, but the vision's words echoed, "Break the chains." She straightened, her grief a performance that shielded her intent. Playing the dutiful brother, Jason stood close to Emily, his arm brushing hers. Emily's delicate features were set in a practiced sorrow, but her eyes gleamed with triumph, as if she'd already claimed Shirley's place. As the procession moved toward the crematorium, Shirley held Lily's hand, her daughter's warmth anchoring her. She thought of her past life's end, starved, shunned, and frozen with Lily in her arms. The pain fueled her resolve, as did her love for the child beside her. Lily looked up, her voice soft. "Will Daddy come back, Mommy?" Shirley's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart," she said gently. "But we'll be okay, just you and me." Lily's slight nod, brave despite her fear, was a spark of hope in Shirley's heart. The crematorium's flames loomed ahead and Shirley's mind raced. By letting Jason burn the body, she was complicit in his lie, but it was a step toward his undoing. In Eldridge, where military records were sacred and a man's name carried his legacy, she would use Jason's deception to strip him of power. Her tears fell not for the body, but for the life she'd lost and the one she'd built. She was no longer the naive wife who begged for love. She was reborn, and she would rewrite their fate. The flickering lamplight cast soft shadows across the cramped bedroom in Shirley Miller's Eldridge home, where the walls seemed to hold the weight of her past life's pain. Outside, the town slumbered under a starless sky, its military rhythms and patriarchal rules a constant hum in the distance. Shirley sat on the edge of her bed, her hands clasped tightly, her mind a battlefield of memories and determination. The vision that had heralded her rebirth, a glowing figure whispering, "Rewrite your fate," still lingered its warmth, a quiet fire in her chest. She was no longer the broken woman who had frozen to death with her daughter Lily in her arms, shunned by a town that revered men and scorned widows. She was reborn. Tonight she would forge a new path for herself and her daughter. Shirley's gaze fell on Lily curled up on her cot, her small frame clutching a tattered doll named Rosie. The sight stirred a pang of guilt and love so fierce it nearly stole her breath. In her past life, Shirley had been blind to Jason's deceit, and her love for him was a chain that bound her to suffering. She had confronted him at Daniel's funeral, her voice raw with betrayal, only to be pushed into an icy river, her daughter locked away their lives, discarded like ash. The memory of Lily's cries. "Daddy, why don't you love me?" echoed in her mind, each one a dagger. She had failed her daughter then too, trusting too weak. But now, armed with the knowledge of Jason's scar and his affair with Emily Summers, Shirley vowed to be different. She would protect Lily no matter the cost, in a society that saw a widow and her daughter as burdens to be cast aside. She knelt beside Lily, brushing her dark hair from her sleeping face. The girl stirred her hazel eyes, fluttering open wide with a fear that seemed older than her 5 years. "Mommy, I dreamed we were cold again," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "You were crying and Daddy wasn't there." Shirley's heart clenched. Lily's dreams, fragments of their past life's tragedy, were a haunting reminder of their shared loss. In Eldridge, where ancestral spirits were whispered about in hushed tones, Shirley wondered if the vision that had reborn her had touched Lily too. She pulled her daughter close, the warmth of her small body a lifeline. "It was just a dream, sweetheart," she said softly, though her voice wavered. "I'm here, and I'll never let that happen again." Lily hugged Rosie tighter, her eyes searching Shirley's. "Why does Daddy call himself Uncle Daniel?" "I know it's him. I saw his scar." Shirley froze her breath, catching. Lily's perception, so pure and unclouded, cut through the lies Shirley had carefully navigated at the funeral. She cupped Lily's face, her thumbs tracing her cheeks. "You're so brave, Lily," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For now, we must keep a secret to keep us safe. Can you do that for Mommy?" Lily nodded, her small jaw set with determination. "I'll help you, Mommy. I don't want Daddy to hurt us again." The words, so resolute from a child, broke Shirley's heart but also steeled her resolve. Lily wasn't just a victim, she was her partner in this fight. Shirley stood pacing the small room, her mind racing with plans. In Eldridge, where military honor and male heirs defined worth, Jason's deception was a calculated move. By impersonating Daniel, he could live with Emily, free of the stigma of abandoning his family, while Shirley and Lily faced the town's scorn. In her past life, she had begged Jason to return, only to be met with cruelty. This time, she would use his greed against him. She thought of Emily's smug glances and Martha's venomous curses, their belief that a widow without a son was worthless. The vision's words echoed, "Break the chains." Shirley would play the grieving widow, let Jason think he'd won, and then dismantle his world by exposing his lies to the military authorities who held his power. She sat at a small table, her fingers tracing the worn wood where she'd once written love letters to Jason. Those days felt like a distant dream tainted by his betrayal. She remembered their early years, his laughter, the promises of a life together. How had she been so blind? Tears pricked her eyes, not for Jason, but for the woman she'd been naive trusting, unaware of the affair that had festered under her nose. Now her love was a fierce, unyielding force for Lily alone. She glanced at her daughter, now asleep again, and whispered, "We'll have a new life, just us." The words were a vow sealed by the strange power that had given her this second chance. Outside, the military bugles sounded a reminder of Eldridge's rigid hierarchy. Shirley knew the road ahead was fraught. She'd face the town's judgment, Martha's wrath, and Jason's cunning. But she was no longer alone. Lily's bravery, her small hand in hers, was her anchor. As the lamplight dimmed, Shirley felt the visions glow within her, a promise of justice. She would outsmart Jason, protect Lily, and rewrite their fate in a world that sought to crush them. The morning hall in Eldridge buzzed with hushed voices, the air thick with incense and the weight of tradition. Shirley Miller stood before the altar, her black dress clinging to her frame, a widow's garb in a town where such a role invited pity and scorn. The military banners outside fluttered a reminder of Eldridge's reverence for men like Jason Miller, the regiment commander who had faked his death to become his brother Daniel. Shirley, reborn with the memories of her past life's betrayal, knew the truth. Jason stood among the mourners, his scar a silent confession, his arm brushing Emily Summers, his lover. The vision that had sparked her second chance, rewrite your fate, burned in her mind, urging her to turn Jason's greed against him. Today she would wield her grief as a weapon, exposing his callousness to a community bound by honor and judgment. Shirley clutched Lily's hand, her daughter's small fingers trembling but steady. The 5-year-old's eyes, wide with understanding, darted toward Jason, who played the grieving brother beside Emily. In her past life, Shirley's confrontation had led to ruin, Jason's denial a shove into a freezing river, and Lily locked in a shed. Now she feigned sorrow, her tears masking a calculated plan. The mourners, clad in somber grays, whispered about her plight. No son, only a daughter, one said, their words dripping with Eldridge's obsession with male heirs. A widow's life is cursed. Another muttered, their gazes heavy with expectation that Shirley would fade into servitude or despair. Jason approached his face, a mask of false sympathy. Sis-in-law Emily's pregnant, he said, his voice low but firm. It's not good for her to stay in the mourning hall. She'll rest. Emily, her delicate features framed by a black veil, nodded, her eyes glinting with greed. Surely you're alone now, she said, her tone syrupy. If you need Daniel's help, it won't be free, will it? She held out an empty checkbook, her intent clear. Jason said, those gold bracelets from your dowry, you don't need them now, do you? A widow with a child shouldn't cling to such things. Give them to Emily. Shirley's heart flared with rage. Those bracelets, gifts from her late mother, were her last tie to a woman who had loved her. But she kept her face crumpled, her voice weak. There's no money left, she said, tears falling. Jason used it all. Lily squeezed Shirley's hand, her voice a whisper. Mommy, they're being mean again. Shirley glanced down, seeing the fire in her daughter's eyes, a spark of defiance that mirrored her own. Stay quiet, sweetheart, she murmured, but watch, we'll make things right. Lily nodded, clutching her doll Rosie's small frame rigid with trust. Shirley's chest ached, Lily's memories of their past lives, cold and betrayal, fueled her resolve. In Eldridge, where widows were expected to bow to family demands, Shirley would use this moment to turn the crowd against Jason. You're wrong, Jason snapped, his voice rising. Daniel told me he left $500. You're hiding it. His certainty betrayed his lie. He was Jason, desperate to maintain his facade of wealth. Shirley seized the moment, her voice breaking with feigned despair. If there were money, would I be like this? She turned to the iron basin used for burning funeral papers, dragging out Jason's belongings. Letters, clothes, a watch he'd given her years ago. This is all he left us, she cried, tossing them into the basin. She struck a match, the flames leaping as the crowd gasped. If you want his scraps, take them, she shouted, her sobs real but fueled by rage, not loss. Jason lunged forward, his face darkening. Those were Daniel's gifts. Why burn them? Shirley faced him, her eyes blazing through tears. My husband's gone and you demand money. Tell me, Daniel, where's this fortune you claim? The mourners shifted their whispers, turning to murmurs of sympathy. Poor Shirley left with nothing, one said. How dare he pressure her now? Another added. In Eldridge, where community honor hinged on protecting the vulnerable, Jason's greed was a stain. Emily's face tightened, her checkbook slipping back into her pocket, but she said nothing, her triumph fading under the crowd's gaze. Lily tugged at Shirley's skirt, her voice soft but fierce. Mommy, they don't know he's daddy, but I do. He's bad. Shirley's heart swelled with pride and pain. Lily's clarity, her small act of defiance, was a reminder of why she fought. She knelt, whispering, You're so strong, Lily. We'll show them together. The flames crackled, consuming Jason's past, and Shirley felt the visions glow within her. She was no longer the naive wife who begged for love. She was a mother reborn to protect her daughter, using Eldridge's own rules to unravel Jason's lies. The morning sun cast a cold light over Eldridge, its military banners snapping in the wind, symbolizing the town's unyielding hierarchy. Shirley Miller stood outside the military district office, her heart pounding with fear and determination. The vision that had reborn her, a glowing figure whispering, "Rewrite your fate," pulsed in her mind, guiding her to this moment. In her past life, she and her daughter Lily had been cast out, starved, and frozen, betrayed by her husband Jason Miller, who faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers. Now armed with the truth of Jason's scar and her resolve, Shirley was ready to sever the ties that bound her to a town that scorned widows and valued sons above all. She clutched Daniel's death certificate, her ticket to freedom, and Lily's small hand, her reason to fight. Inside the office, the air was thick with the scent of ink and polished wood, starkly contrasting with the dusty morning hall where Shirley had played the grieving widow. The military commander, a stern man with graying temples, looked up from his desk, his eyes softening at the sight of Lily, who stood close to Shirley, her tattered doll, Rosie, clutched tightly. In Eldridge, where military records were sacred and a man's name carried his legacy, Shirley's mission was bold: report Jason's death, revoke his military registration, and secure a future for herself and Lily. She straightened, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Sir, my husband Jason Miller was killed in the line of duty," she said, presenting the certificate. "I request his removal from the registry and a job to support my daughter." Lily looked up, her hazel eyes wide but resolute. "Mommy's strong," she whispered to Rosie, her voice barely audible. Shirley's heart swelled. Lily's trust, even after dreams of their past lives cold, was a beacon. Shirley had begged Jason for mercy in her past life, only to be met with cruelty and a town's scorn. Now she stood before power not as a supplicant but as a woman claiming her due. The commander studied the certificate, his brow furrowing. "Comrade Jason Miller's loss is a tragedy," he said. "As his widow, you're entitled to compensation and support. But a job here, it's demanding, and you'd leave Eldridge. Have you thought this through?" Shirley nodded, her throat tight. Leaving meant abandoning the home where she'd once dreamed of a life with Jason, the fields where she'd walked with Lily, the memories of a love now tainted. But it also meant escaping Martha's curses, Emily's greed, and Jason's lies. "I've thought it through, sir," she said, her voice firm. "My daughter and I need a new start. I can work, learn, and provide for her." Lily squeezed her hand, her small voice adding, "I'll help Mommy like always." The commander's eyes softened further, a rare crack in his military demeanor. "You're determined," he said. "We need accountants. If you're willing, the job is yours, with a dormitory for you both." The paperwork was swift, a testament to the military's efficiency. Jason's registration was revoked, his commander title stripped, and Shirley received a survivor's compensation and a funeral subsidy. As she signed the forms, her heart ached with a bittersweet mix of triumph and loss. She was breaking free, but at the cost of her past. The vision's words echoed, "Break the chains." In Eldridge, where widows were expected to serve or fade, Shirley's choice was a rebellion against a culture that devalued her. She thought of Jason, unaware of her move, still playing Daniel with Emily, believing he'd won. Her lips curved into a grim smile. She'd use his deception to bury him. Lily tugged at her skirt, her face serious. "Are we leaving Daddy's town, Mommy?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear, but also hope. Shirley knelt, meeting her daughter's gaze. "Yes, sweetheart," she said softly. "We're going somewhere new, where we can be happy, just you and me." Lily nodded, her small hand tightening around Rosie. "I don't want Daddy to find us," she said, her words a knife to Shirley's heart. Though veiled as dreams, Lily's memories of their past life's betrayal fueled her courage, mirroring Shirley's own. As they left the office, the military district's gates loomed, a threshold to a new life. Shirley felt the weight of Eldridge's judgment lift, replaced by a flicker of hope. The commander's promise of support was a lifeline, but Lily's trust anchored her. Shirley was rewriting her fate in a town obsessed with male heirs and military honor, one bold step at a time. She held Lily close, the vision's glow warming her resolve. Jason's world would crumble, but hers and Lily's would rise. The late afternoon sun cast a harsh glow over the Miller family's courtyard in Eldridge, where dust clung to the cracked earth, mirroring the town's unyielding traditions. Shirley Miller stood with a small cloth bag over her shoulder, her heart a furnace of rage and resolve. The vision that had reborn her, a glowing figure whispering, "Rewrite your fate," pulsed within, guiding her to escape a town that had once crushed her. In her past life, she and her daughter Lily had been starved, shunned, and frozen, betrayed by her husband Jason Miller, who faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers. With Jason's military registration revoked and a job secured in the military district, Shirley was ready to break free from Eldridge, where widows were scorned and male heirs revered above all. Lily sat on the ground, her tiny hands peeling corn blisters red and raw from tasks forced upon her by her grandmother Martha Miller. Shirley's chest tightened at the sight Lily, only 5, bore the weight of Eldridge's patriarchal cruelty. In her past life, Martha had cursed Shirley as a jinx for not bearing a son, casting them out into a deadly winter. Now, Martha lounged in a wicker chair, her eyes narrowed with disdain. "The jinx returns," she sneered. "My son's dead because of you, and you dare run around while Emily carries our only grandson." Shirley's blood boiled. She knew Emily's unborn child was Jason's, a secret Martha endorsed, but the vision's glow urged restraint. She would not lash out, not yet. Lily looked up, her hazel eyes glistening with tears. "Mommy, my hands hurt," she whispered, clutching her tattered doll, Rosie. Shirley knelt, her heart breaking as she saw the burst blisters red and swollen. "You're so brave, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. Lily's dreams of their past life's cold haunted her, a child's intuition of betrayal. "Why does Grandma hate us?" Lily asked, her voice small but fierce. Shirley cupped her daughter's face, her pain mirrored in Lily's eyes. "She's wrong, Lily. We don't need her. We're leaving for a better place." Lily nodded, her small jaw set. "I want to go away from them with you, Mommy." Shirley stood, rage flaring as she faced Martha. "My husband's dead," she said, her voice sharp. "I owe you nothing. Lily and I are leaving." Martha's face twisted, her obsession with grandsons fueling her venom. "You gave us no son, and now you abandon Emily. She's carrying the Miller heir. You'll stay and serve her." Emily emerged from the house, rubbing her stomach with a smug smile. "Surely I need help," she said. "The grandson I carry deserves care, unlike your useless girl." Shirley's hands clenched, the vision's words echoing break the chains. In Eldridge, where women are judged by the sons they bore, their words are a slap, but Shirley sees her chance to defy them. Before she could respond, Jason appeared, his scar glinting as he strode forward, playing Daniel. His eyes locked on the train ticket in Shirley's hand. "Where do you think you're going?" he demanded, his voice cold. Shirley stepped in front of Lily, her heart pounding. "It's none of your business, Daniel," she said, emphasizing his false name. "I'm an outsider now." Jason's face darkened, and he snatched the ticket, tearing it to pieces. "You'll starve without us," he sneered. "Stay, and I'll let you manage the house for Emily." Shirley's rage surged, memories of his past life's cruelty, shoving her into a river, locking Lily away, flooded back. But she held firm, her voice icy. "You're not my husband. I'll leave when I choose." Lily tugged at Shirley's skirt, her voice fierce. "He's not Uncle Daniel, Mommy. He's Daddy, and he's mean." Shirley's heart swelled with pride and pain. Lily's clarity was her strength. She knelt, whispering, "We're almost free, sweetheart." The courtyard grew quiet, Martha's sneer faltering as Shirley's defiance sank in. In Eldridge, a widow's rebellion was unheard of, challenging a culture that demanded submission. Shirley grabbed her bag, lifting Lily into her arms. "We're done here," she said, turning to leave. Martha lunged forward, blocking her path. "You'll not walk away after freeloading off us," she spat. But Shirley pushed past, her resolve unbreakable, the vision's glow of fire in her soul. The dusty courtyard of the Miller family home in Eldridge buzzed with tension, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows that mirrored the town's rigid judgments. Shirley Miller stood with her cloth bag slung over her shoulder, Lily clinging to her side, her heart pounding with the resolve of her mysterious rebirth. The vision's whisper, "Rewrite your fate," burned within a beacon in a town where military honor and patriarchal norms crushed widows like her. In her past life, Shirley and her daughter had been cast out, starved and frozen, betrayed by her husband Jason Miller, who faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers. Now, as she tried to leave with a train ticket to a new life in the military district, Jason had torn it apart, his scar glinting as he sneered, "You'll starve without us." Shirley's defiance had sparked a fire, and the crowd of neighbors drawn by the commotion now watched with eager eyes. Emily stepped forward, her pregnant belly prominent, her face twisted with outrage. "Surely, how dare you seduce my husband?" she shrieked, clutching Jason's arm. In Eldridge, where a widow's honor was fragile and gossip was a weapon, her words were poison. She staggered dramatically, collapsing to the ground, clutching her stomach. "She pushed me. She's trying to hurt our baby." The crowd gasped, their whispers sharp. A widow chasing her brother-in-law. No shame. Not even a month after Jason's death, Shirley's blood boiled, memories of her past life's scorn. branded a madwoman for recognizing Jason's scar flooded back. She stood tall, her voice steady. "That's a lie, Emily. I only want to leave with my daughter." Her petite frame trembling, Lily broke free from Shirley's grasp and rushed forward, shoving Emily's leg with all her might. "You're lying," she cried, her hazel eyes blazing. "Mommy didn't do anything. You're mean, just like in my dreams." The crowd fell silent, stunned by the child's outburst. Shirley's heart swelled with pride and pain, Lily's memories of their past life's betrayal veiled as dreams fueled her courage. She pulled Lily back, whispering, "You're so brave, sweetheart, but stay close." Lily clutched her tattered doll Rosie, her small voice fierce. "I hate them, Mommy. They hurt us before." Shirley's throat tightened, the vision's glow urging her to protect her daughter's fire. Martha, Shirley's mother-in-law, stormed into the fray, her face feral with rage. "You jinx," she spat. "You killed my son, and now you attack Emily's grandson. Get out, but leave everything you've leached from us in Eldridge, where male heirs were the family's legacy." Martha's obsession with Emily's unborn child was a cultural cornerstone, her hatred for Shirley's failure to bear a son, a public verdict. Shirley's hands clenched, the vision's words echoing "break the chains." She faced the crowd, her voice ringing with controlled fury. "My husband is dead, and I owe this family nothing. You call me a jinx, but who's tearing a mother and child apart? Judge that." Still playing, Daniel. Jason seized the moment, pointing at Shirley with disdain. "She's confused, thinking I'm Jason because I look like him," he said, his voice loud. "She begged me to take her to replace her husband." The crowd's murmurs grew harsher, their eyes narrowing with disgust. "Shameless widow," one muttered. "Trying to steal her brother-in-law," another hissed. Shirley's heart pounded, the weight of Eldridge's patriarchal scorn pressing down, but she refused to break. She met Jason's gaze, her eyes cold. "You're Daniel Miller, not my husband. Stop twisting the truth to trap us here." Lily tugged at Shirley's skirt, her voice a desperate whisper. "Mommy, they're all against us like before." Shirley knelt, her hand on Lily's cheek. "We're stronger than their lies, sweetheart," she said softly. "We'll leave, I promise." The crowd's whispers grew louder, but a few faces softened, their eyes flickering with doubt. Shirley's defiance planted a seed in Eldridge, where community honor demanded fairness. She stood facing Jason, Emily, and Martha, her bag symbolizing her rebellion. "Lily and I are leaving," she declared. "No one here has the right to stop us." The vision's glow burned brighter, her resolve a shield against a town that sought to chain her to its rules. The Miller family courtyard in Eldridge thrummed with tension, the late afternoon air thick with the dust of accusation and the weight of the town's patriarchal gaze. Shirley Miller stood defiant, her cloth bag slung over her shoulder, Lily clinging to her side as the crowd's whispers cut like blades. Emily Summers, clutching her pregnant belly, had just accused Shirley of attacking her, while Jason Miller, posing as his brother Daniel, claimed Shirley tried to seduce him. Martha, Shirley's mother-in-law, cursed her as a jinx who failed to bear a son. In a town where military honor and male heirs defined worth, their lies painted Shirley as a shameless widow, a stain on Eldridge's rigid norms. Yet the vision that had reborn her, "rewrite your fate," burned in Shirley's heart, urging her to stand firm. She would not break with Lily's small hand in hers, and a new life was waiting in the military district. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their eyes flickering with disgust. "She's disgracing Jason's memory," one neighbor hissed. "A widow should know her place," another muttered. Shirley's chest tightened, memories of her past life's scorn branded a madwoman for recognizing Jason's scar flooding back. Her hazel eyes blazing, Lily whispered fiercely, "Mommy, they're wrong. You didn't do it." Shirley squeezed her daughter's hand, her heart swelling with pride. Lily's courage, tinged with echoes of their past life's betrayal, was a spark of strength. "Stay strong, sweetheart," Shirley murmured. "We're almost free." In Eldridge, where widows were expected to serve or fade, Shirley's defiance was a rebellion, and she felt the vision's glow fortifying her resolve. Before Emily could raise her hand to strike Shirley, a deep voice cut through the chaos. "Enough." The military commander, a towering figure in a crisp uniform, strode into the courtyard, his presence silencing the crowd. Behind him, a dozen uniformed guards fanned out, their boots crunching on the dirt. Shirley's breath caught. The commander's arrival was unexpected, a lifeline she hadn't dared hope for. He had approved her job and compensation, but his visit was a rarity in Eldridge, where military authority was revered and feared. His gray eyes swept over the scene, landing on Shirley and Lily with a flicker of compassion. "I came to escort Shirley to her new position," he said, his voice firm. "But it seems there's a dispute." Jason, still playing Daniel, forced a smile, rushing forward. "Commander, you've been misled," he said, his voice oily. "Shirley's confused, thinking I'm her husband. She tried to seduce me, shaming my brother's memory." Emily nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "She attacked me, tried to hurt my baby, and she sobbed, clutching her belly." Martha wailed. "She's a jinx, stealing the survivor's compensation meant for us." The crowd murmured their judgment, wavering under the commander's gaze. Their accusations risked unraveling under scrutiny in Eldridge, where military records were sacred. Shirley stepped forward, tears brimming, but her voice was steady. "Commander, I only want to raise my daughter," she set her hand on Lily's shoulder. "They slandered me to steal my dowry and the compensation Jason left us. I'm his widow, entitled to it by law." Lily looked up, her voice small but clear. "Mommy's telling the truth. They're mean, like in my dreams." The commander's brow furrowed, moved by the child's plea. He turned to Jason, his eyes narrowing. "Shirley is Comrade Jason Miller's wife and Lily's mother. The funds are hers by military regulation. No one else has a claim." The crowd gasped, their whispers shifting. "The commander supports her," one said. "Maybe she's not the disgrace," another murmured. In Eldridge, where community honor hinged on fairness, the commander's authority was a turning point. Jason's face paled, his scar stark against his skin. "She's lying to trap me," he stammered. "She wants a polygamous marriage, Emily and I both." The commander's voice was a whip. "Absurd. Such backward customs have no place here. Daniel Miller, your accusations dishonor your brother's memory and your sister-in-law's name." Shirley's heart soared, the vision's glow afire within. She met the commander's gaze, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, sir. I would like a chance to start over with Lily." He nodded, gesturing to the military vehicle waiting beyond the gate. "Gather your things, we leave now." Shirley lifted Lily, whose small arms wrapped around her neck. "We're going, Mommy?" she asked, hope in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart," Shirley whispered to a new home. The crowd parted, some offering hesitant apologies, their eyes reflecting shame for their quick judgment. Shirley walked to the vehicle, her bag light, but her spirit heavy with triumph and loss, leaving Jason, Emily, and Martha silenced in the dust. The military district of Eldridge gleamed under the morning sun, its orderly rows of dormitories and offices, a stark contrast to the dusty chaos of the Miller family courtyard. Shirley Miller stood in her new accounting office, her fingers tracing ledger lines, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The vision that had reborn her, "Rewrite your fate," whispered by a glowing figure, still lingered, a quiet strength, as she built a new life for herself and her daughter Lily. In her past life, they had frozen to death, betrayed by her husband Jason Miller, who faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers. Now, with Jason's military status revoked and a job secured, Shirley had escaped Eldridge's patriarchal grip, where widows were scorned and male heirs prized above all. Lily sat nearby, coloring a picture of a bright house with flowers, her small hands steadier than they had been peeling corn under her grandmother's cruel watch. The military dormitory, modest but clean, was their sanctuary, a far cry from the Miller home where Martha's curses and Emily's greed had suffocated them. Shirley watched Lily, her heart swelling with pride and guilt for their past suffering. In Eldridge, where a woman's worth was tied to her husband or sons, Shirley's new role as an accountant was a quiet rebellion, a chance to redefine herself. The vision's glow urged her forward, reminding her she was no longer the naive wife who begged for Jason's love. Lily looked up, her hazel eyes bright. "Mommy, I like it here," she said, holding up her drawing. "No mean grandma, no bad dreams." Shirley knelt beside her, her throat tightening. Lily's visions of their past lives cold still haunted her, but her smile was a spark of hope. "I'm glad, sweetheart," Shirley said, brushing a lock of hair from Lily's face. "We're safe now, just you and me." Lily nodded, her voice soft but firm. "I want to stay here forever with you." Shirley's heart ached. Lily's trust, forged through shared pain, was her anchor in this new world. The military district buzzed with activity, its disciplined rhythm a comfort after Eldridge's judgmental whispers. Shirley's colleagues, initially wary of a widow, warmed to her diligence, and the commander praised her quick learning. One afternoon, a familiar voice called her name as she filed reports. Eric Chen, a former night school classmate, stood in the doorway, his kind eyes sparking memories of simpler days before her marriage to Jason. "Shirley, it's been years," he said, his smile warm. "I just transferred here." Shirley's heart stirred, a mix of nostalgia and regret for the life she might have had. Eric, it's good to see you, she said, her voice catching. She thinks of Jason's betrayal and the years wasted on a man who chose Emily. The vision's words echoed break the chains. Eric offered to help with her files, and his presence was quiet support. Shirley hesitated, wary of Eldridge's gossip, but his kindness was a balm. As they talked, Lily ran over her drawing in hand. Is he a friend, Mommy? She asked, her eyes curious but cautious. Shirley nodded, smiling. Yes, sweetheart. Eric's a good person. Lily studied him, then held out her drawing. It's our new home, she said proudly. Eric grinned, praising her work, and Shirley felt a flicker of hope a life beyond betrayal was possible. That hope was shattered when Lily fell ill with a fever. At the district hospital, Eric helped Shirley carry her daughter, who is now resting after medicine. As they left, a chilling voice cut through the air. Shirley, who's this man? Jason stood with Emily, his face thunderous, his scar stark under the hospital lights. Shirley's heart raced, but she stood firm, the vision's glow steadying her. Daniel Miller, she said, coldly emphasizing his false name. What gives you the right to question me? Jason's eyes narrowed, his jealousy flaring. You're my sister-in-law. My brother's barely gone, and you're with another man. No shame. Lily stirred in Shirley's arms, her voice weak but fierce. You're not my daddy. Leave Mommy alone. Shirley's heart swelled. Lily's defiance, even sick, was afire. Eric stepped forward, his voice sharp. She's your sister-in-law, and you speak to her like that. I know Shirley from school. She's honorable, unlike you. Jason scoffed, his arrogance unchecked. She's used goods with a kid. You know she's after me, thinking I'm Jason. Shirley's rage flared, but she kept her voice icy. You're nothing to me, Daniel. My husband's dead, and I'm moving on. In Eldridge, where widows were judged harshly, her words were a bold claim to freedom. The twilight shadows stretched across the military district's quiet paths, the air cool with the promise of a new life for Shirley Miller and her daughter Lily. Shirley walked home from her accounting job, her heart lighter in the orderly world of the district, far from Eldridge's dusty judgment. The vision that had reborn her, rewrite your fate, whispered by a glowing figure, burned within a guiding flame as she built a future free from her husband Jason Miller's betrayal. In her past life, Jason had faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers, leaving Shirley and Lily to freeze in a cruel winter. Shirley thrived with Jason's military status revoked, but his shadow lingered. The cultural weight of Eldridge, where widows were scorned and male heirs revered, still haunted her steps. As Shirley turned onto a wooded path, a rough hand clamped over her mouth, dragging her into a grove. Panic surged, but she bit down hard, tasting blood. A gasp escaped her attacker Jason, his scar stark under the fading light. Surely it's me, he hissed, clutching her wrist. I've thought it over. I forgive you. Come home and we'll raise Lily together. Shirley's heart pounded memories of his past life's cruelty, shoving her into a river, locking Lily in a shed, flooding back. The vision's glow steadied her, and she wrenched free, her voice cold. My husband's dead, Daniel. Don't impersonate him. In Eldridge, where a man's word held power, her refusal defied his assumed authority. Jason's face twisted desperation in his eyes. You know I'm Jason, he whispered urgently. The scar, look at it. I took Daniel's place for Emily's sake, but I care about you. Come back and we'll fix everything. Shirley's stomach churned with disgust. His confession, which might have swayed her in her past life's naive hope, now rang hollow against his intimacy with Emily. You're nothing to me, she said, her voice steady. My husband died, and I'm free of you. Lily's face flashed in her mind, her daughter's dreams of their past life's cold fueling Shirley's resolve. She would protect Lily from this man who had abandoned them. A bright light pierced the grove before Jason could grab her again, and footsteps thundered. Eric Chen, her former classmate, led a patrol unit, his face taut with concern. Shirley, are you okay? He called out as the guards wrestled Jason to the ground. Jason thrashed, shouting, Let me go! I'm Jason Miller, the commander. Shirley's heart raced, but she stood firm. Lily's trust in her was her anchor. He's Daniel Miller, she said coldly. He tried to abduct me. Eric's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. That's a serious crime, Daniel. You'll answer for it. In Eldridge's military culture, such an act was a stain on honor, and the guards' contempt was palpable. At the district's hearing room, Jason stood defiant, his scar a silent confession. I'm Jason Miller, he insisted. Shirley knows it. Emily and my mother can prove it. Shirley faced him, her voice unwavering. You're Daniel. You cremated my husband yourself. Let him rest. Standing beside her, Lily clutched her hand, her small voice fierce. "You're not my daddy. You hurt Mommy in my dreams." Shirley's heart swelled. Lily's courage, born of their shared pain, was afire. The stern officer leader summoned Emily and Martha, questioning them separately. Jason smirked, confident his allies would save him. Emily entered, her face pale, clinging to Jason's arm. "Honey," she said sweetly, "I told them we're married. You're Daniel." Jason froze, stunned. Martha followed, her eyes darting. "I told you, Daniel, son. We protected you. Their lies meant to shield their interests, and Eldridge's rigid society trapped Jason in his false identity." His face reddened, his voice desperate. "You idiots, I'm Jason." The leader's expression hardened. "Daniel Miller, your disciplinary action will be public. You've lost your brother's honor." Shirley stood silent, the vision's glow a triumph within. Jason's allies had undone him, their greed and fear sealing his fate. The morning sun bathed the military district in a golden glow, its orderly streets a haven for Shirley Miller and her daughter Lily, far from the judgmental dust of Eldridge. Shirley stood in her accounting office, a ledger open before her, her heart steady with a peace she hadn't known in her past life. The vision that had reborn her, "Rewrite your fate," whispered by a glowing figure, still warmed her, a testament to her journey from betrayal to triumph. In her past life, she and Lily had frozen to death, cast out by her husband Jason Miller, who faked his death to live as his brother Daniel with his lover Emily Summers. With Jason's military status revoked and his deception exposed, Shirley had carved a new life in a society that once scorned widows and valued male heirs above all. Lily sat nearby, her laughter filling the room as she played with new friends from the district school. Her hazel eyes, once haunted by dreams of their past life's cold, now sparkled with joy. "Mommy, I drew our new home." She called, holding a picture of a flower house and a smiling sun. Shirley knelt beside her, her heart swelling. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said, brushing Lily's hair. Lily's small hand gripped hers, her voice soft but firm. "No more mean people, right, Mommy?" Shirley nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "Never again, Lily. We're free." In Eldridge, where a widow's worth was tied to her husband or sons, their new life was a rebellion, a testament to the vision's promise. The military district had embraced them. Shirley's diligence earned her the commander's praise, and her once wary colleagues now respected her. The commander, a stern but fair man, stopped by one day, his eyes warm. "You've done well, Shirley," he said. "If you need anything, my door's open." Shirley thanked him, deeply grateful for the man who had validated her against Jason's lies. Eric Chen, her former classmate, remained a steady friend, often joining them for meals. His kindness stirred memories of a life before Jason, but Shirley focused on Lily, wary of Eldridge's gossip about widows. "You deserve happiness," Eric said, once his smile gentle. Shirley smiled back, her heart open but cautious, the vision's glow urging her to prioritize her daughter. News from Eldridge trickled in, painting a grim picture of Jason's downfall. After his arrest for attempting to abduct Shirley, his disciplinary action was public, stripping him of his factory job. Emily's pregnancy, a source of Martha's obsession with a grandson, ended in tragedy, a frail daughter born during a difficult labor who died within a month. Martha, steeped in Eldridge's patriarchal dogma, blamed Emily for failing to produce a son, their relationship crumbling. Emily, weakened and unable to bear more children, faced Martha's neglect, and their home was a battleground of resentment. Jobless and shunned, Jason wandered Eldridge's streets, his commander's pride reduced to ashes. One day, Jason barged into Shirley's office, his face haggard, his scar stark. "Shirley, let's start over," he pleaded. "Forgive me for Lily's sake. She needs a father." Shirley's rage flared, memories of his betrayal shoving her into a river, locking Lily away, burning bright. Before she could speak, Lily burst in her small frame, fierce. "You're not my daddy," she shouted, shoving him. "I only want Mommy." Martha, lurking nearby, rolled her eyes. "Ungrateful brat," she muttered. "We don't need you or your girl. Plenty of women can give us a son." Shirley's voice was ice. "Leave Daniel. My husband's dead and you're nothing to us." The guards escorted them out, Jason's shouts fading into the distance. Lily clung to Shirley, her voice trembling. "They can't hurt us anymore, right, Mommy?" Shirley held her tight, her heart full. "Never, sweetheart. We're stronger than them." The vision's glow felt complete, its promise fulfilled. Back in Eldridge, villagers learned of Jason's deceit, sending letters of apology to Shirley, their shame a quiet vindication. "We misjudged you," one wrote. "You're a true mother." Shirley read them with Lily, her heart healing with each word. As they walked hand in hand under the district's blooming trees, Shirley whispered, "We're free, Lily. Forever." The future stretched bright before them, a canvas of hope in a world they had rewritten.